Something that most of us had a heck of a lot more of as kids than we do now as adults is free time. And what's one of the best things to do with free time? That's right, play video games. Also, funny enough, most of us now as adults own way more video games than we ever could have had as kids, so how are we supposed to find time to play all these games? Plus, it's not like playing video games is the only thing we would ever spend our free time on, especially if we have friends and family. However, if you have friends and family that also like playing video games, or even just hanging out with you while you're playing video games, that could be a win-win because not only do you get to hang out with them, you also get to play video games. So it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone. I also know that a lot of you like to play video games with your kids, which can be a great bonding activity. I mean, video games really are a universal language where anybody can appreciate and enjoy them. And I also love hearing about some of you telling me that you actually try to influence your kids into appreciating some of the older retro games, which I find to be really funny because some of those specific exact retro games that we played as kids, our parents were telling us at that time, you know, this video game crap, what's the point of it? They didn't really see the value in it. Where now, us as adults playing these same games are telling our kids, you better learn to appreciate these older retro games or you can just live somewhere else. Boot them out of the house. All joking aside, retro games actually do have an advantage when it comes to being limited on free time though, and that would just be their simple pick up and play nature. You can just pop in your cartridge, turn the power on, one or two quick screens, you press start, and boom, you're into the game and you're playing. Something I talked about in my video about the issues with modern gaming is just how long it can take to play some of those games, and not just beating the whole game overall, but individual play sessions, and especially if it's your first time playing the game, whew, yeah, you really have hit some bad luck because you're gonna have to wait for that game to install, which can take hours. So yeah, you better plan ahead if you want to be able to play that and actually utilize your free time to play the game instead of waiting for it to install. You could probably run all the way through 2 or 3 entire retro games in the amount of time it takes some modern games just to install to play them. So keep that in mind the next time you're waiting for a game to install, if you're somebody who does that. One little trick that I would like to share when it comes to maximizing the free time that you do have is to plan ahead what you're going to play. Once you get to those opportunities where you do have free time to play games, you don't want to spend that time screwing around figuring out what you want to play. And sure, yeah, I know it can just kind of hit you sometimes where you're like, yeah, I want to play this game. But usually if you just kind of think about it through the day, hey, what game would I want to play later today? What feels good? You can usually come up with something, and then you can have that game ready to go when you get to that time to actually play the game, so you can just pop it in and get going. The next thing that I would like to talk about is consolidation. Now, if you've been watching my channel for long enough, then you'll know that I'm a big fan of consolidation. And the reason why is that the more games you get and the more games you feel you need to play, you know, the bigger your backlog gets, the more this pressure mounts that you feel like you need to play those games. And the whole point of playing video games is to have fun, right? So why do we need all that pressure? So naturally, consolidation can be helpful because if you have less games, then there's less games you need to play through. And in a funny way, this can make it feel like you have more free time because you're not feeling that pressure of, oh, I need so much free time to play through all these games. It lessens the burden. And so, of course, I'm sure some of you right now are thinking, how dare you tell me to sell some of my games? And listen, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just offering advice that's been proven to work. You can do whatever you want. But another thing I should mention though is that say you're not going to play all of these games and you can come to peace with that. That can lessen the burden too, because if we're looking at things realistically, you are just never going to play all the games you have. Certainly not, you know, within the next couple of years or whatever you had in mind. But if you can come to terms with the fact that you're just not going to play some of these games and you're okay with having them strictly as a collectible item, that can lessen the burden too and release some of that pressure of feeling like you need so much time to play through all of those games. Endless games I know some of us own. I mean, just think about this for a second, just for fun. Okay, so think about how many games you have, how long it would take to beat all of those games, and then whatever your average amount of free time to play video games a week is. And then also average life expectancy, like about when are you probably going to die. And if you did the math, it's probably mathematically impossible to beat every single game you have for some of us, depending on how many games you have. Now, let's say you're looking for a quick fix to free up some more time to play video games. For this, you gotta look at all of the classic time wasters, stuff like eating, going to the bathroom, showering, and worst of all, sleep. Hours and hours spent just laying there motionless. So much time wasted. But in all seriousness, don't ever neglect your responsibilities and taking care of yourself, all that kind of stuff, because what makes playing video games so enjoyable is that it is that limited free time we have. It feels like a reward for doing all the other things that we need to do, all of our responsibilities. Plus, it's not like video games are the only thing in our life that we enjoy. I mean, I guess sometimes it could maybe feel that way, but you know, it could also just be a compliment to the other things in your life that you enjoy doing. Like, hey, today was a great day. I hung out with my friends. I did this, I did that. And then I capped it all off by playing some video games. Next, I'd like to talk about the time that I think is probably one of the most popular times that a lot of us play video games. And this is a time that I like to refer to as when the world stops. And basically when this is once everybody else has gone to bed, the day is over for basically everybody else on the earth except for us, because it's time to play a few video games before we go to bed. Now, this time for playing games can be especially satisfying for one particular reason, and that is because it is uninterrupted. Now, during the day, there's all sorts of reasons you could be interrupted while you're trying to play games, most of which are some pretty valid reasons, like your child is screaming, you better go to them and make sure they're okay, or the toilet is clogged. You better go and unclog it, or else nobody can go to the bathroom until you do. And this is why I refer to the time when the world stops as your best chance to play games uninterrupted. Now, sure, could something happen where you do get interrupted? Somebody could wake up or something could happen, sure. But on paper, it's your best chance to play games uninterrupted. All right, and that about does it for my thoughts, but I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your comments on this one, because I want to ask you, what are some of the more comical aspects of your life that either contribute positively or negatively to your ability to have free time and play video games? How you manage all of that? I'd be really curious to hear. So be sure to leave those comments down below as always, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games.